Hello, everyone, and welcome to Get Hired Live. I'm your host, Andrew Seaman, the LinkedIn Senior News Editor for Job Searches and Careers. I'm so happy to have you here today and here as always. So what I want you to do is, as I always ask of you, introduce yourself into the stream. We already have a bunch of people sort of saying hello. We have Risa from Iowa. I have some good friends in Iowa. Faraz in the UK, Sharon in Washington, and Sherbella from Beirut. And we have Jenny, Dave, Peter, Abdel, Lillian. So keep introducing yourself in the comments. And don't just tell us your name and where you're from. Tell us a little bit about your job search or what you want to do with your career. Maybe you are looking for a new job. Maybe you are looking to change industries. Maybe you are looking to get a promotion. Tell us whatever your goal is and maybe what you're struggling with. And also then what I want you to do is keep an eye out for what people are saying in the stream and connect with each other. Maybe there's someone in the stream who has the same ambitions as you. They want to work in an area that you work in, or you want to work in an area where they work, and just form those connections. Some of the best messages that I get after these shows are from people who say, hey, you know what? I met someone in the comments stream and we're ending up helping each other with our job search. It's a great strategy. These people know what you're going through better than anyone else, and you could help each other, look over each other's resumes, and just be buddies, which I think is always something nice, and form connections. Networking is so important to a job search, and what better time to start than right now. So be sure to do that. And we have a bunch of other people coming into the stream. So I want to say hi to Kara from New Jersey, across the river from me in New York City, Nora from Uruguay, Anna from Miami. We have people coming in from all over. So like I said, keep introducing yourself, and we are going to have a really great chat today. So without further ado, I want to bring in our guest who has so much experience in recruiting and also helping job seekers and people looking to develop their career. June Caloroso, who is a job search and career coach, and like I said, a recruiter. So she knows what's happening on both sides of the job search. So welcome, June.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Andrew. Hello, everyone. I see the comments just blowing up with a bunch of people that I see that I actually know in my network. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Of course, and welcome to all of June's connections. I'm so glad to have all of you here, and obviously I'm happy to have June here. So June, when I was talking to you about what we wanted to talk about, what you suggested was, what about talking about how to move on from a job loss? Because you posted on LinkedIn, this is something that you have experience in, because you started your own business actually after losing your job during the pandemic. So can you tell us a little bit about, what you did, and also what your suggestions are for people who are dealing with a job loss, and in some case, a job loss that has lasted more than maybe a year?
No, yeah, this is something that actually I'm very, very passionate about, because in addition to millions of people that were laid off because of the pandemic, have experienced that layoff. And the first thing that I always suggest is, and I actually just wrote an article about this I posted yesterday, because I did celebrate my layoff anniversary, which so many people in my own network are celebrating, or using this time to really reflect about the emotions they felt last year. So the biggest tip for me is really take the time to grieve through those emotions, because so many of us as professionals, we tie a huge part of our identity to our careers. So what happens when that career is suddenly stripped away from us, from things that are not controllable, right? So what do? You're definitely going to go through the different 5 stages of grief when it comes to like denial, anger, acceptance, and that's what I went through. And my biggest tip, the first tip for me, is really take the time to connect with those emotions, sort them through, try to voice out your frustrations, and really build community, because just know that you're not alone. This is a very unique situation that we're in. And yes, the job market is definitely looking like it's going to improve, but so many people are struggling right now. And another tip for me too is really connect with your inner child, which is something that I'm passionate about. And speaking from experience, before I even started, and this is something that I actually work with my clients too, is because so many of them are feeling lost when they are laid off, they lost their job, and they're thinking of pivoting in their careers, but they don't know where to start. My biggest thing too is tip 2 is reconnect with your inner child. What is it about the role or the industries that you're passionate about? Kind of go into the perspective of being curious, right? And try to learn new skills, new hobbies, because that's going to really build up your confidence and give you some kind of structure and routine in your day, right? So third tip is create a routine. So once you actually know that you want to invest in yourself by taking online courses, say if you are in a sales career and you're looking to pivot into tech and you really want to get into social media, right? There are so many free resources, including Google Workshops with Grow with Google, where you could actually access all of these great, amazing courses to help level up with your career and confidence, right? So that's tip 3. And tip 4 is, again, build community and accountability. Just because I'm so passionate about LinkedIn, because prior to my layoff from last year, I really only utilized LinkedIn as a way to source and identify candidates that I wanted to hire at the tech companies I was working for. LinkedIn is such a powerful platform and community. There's over 30 million companies on LinkedIn. And I really, really want to encourage my clients, my community, to really look at LinkedIn as a way to not only showcase your expertise and skills, but a way to connect and connect with mentors, connect with possible opportunities. Because I have, with my clients, with the help of LinkedIn, I was able to help them land jobs because they have a strong personal brand on LinkedIn. So really build that community, connect with people, ask for help. And then 5th tip is, if you are looking, if you came to a conclusion where, okay, I know where I want, I'm feeling really good about my confidence and my skills, really do an inventory check and see, where your strengths lie. A lot of clients that I work with, they don't really know what their strengths are and superpowers are. And that's the biggest tip for me to give to you is, before you even go into your job search, really understand what your strengths are, because at the end of the day, you want to share the strengths that you can bring to an employer. So those are my quick tips.
That's great. Did a little birdie tell you that?
Oh my God, I live in a farm right now. I have dog and birds chirping. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh no, it's fine. Birds are much better than what I hear in New York City, which is usually sirens. So yeah, and also I think so many people agree with what you're saying. Susan was talking about the grief part of it, and what I think people should know is, you're so right. There are so many emotions attached to our jobs, so we might grieve a job. And what's also important is, even if you choose to leave a job, you might grieve. I remember when I switched jobs the one time, so much of my identity was tied to my old job, and I had formed sort of a work family, that when I left it, even though I had a great opportunity on the other side of it, I still felt like a loss that I couldn't really process. So there's a lot of emotions tied to a job. And, you talked about your layoff anniversary. I think that's what was the word. Yeah, layoff anniversary. I'm not going to get that quickly. But, there are a lot of people who are sort of marking that milestone, which is, they haven't been able to find a job. And obviously, like you said, jobs are coming back, but it's still a really tough job market out there. So for people who have been laid off and they've been out of work for a long time, what is your suggestion for them to keep going? Because obviously, a job loss, it's one thing to sort of pick yourself off and get the momentum going. But what about someone who, like I said, have been out of work for a while, and maybe they're not feeling, the ambition to do a lot of that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And I know so many people is experiencing that after being months on the job market. This is actually a really good time too, if you have been thinking of pivoting into a new career, a new industry. Maybe in addition to your job search, as I mentioned before, take up some new courses. That's going to keep you motivated, because when you do learn a new skill and master it, that's something that you could actually share during your interview, right? Another thing too, it's so important to have that routine in place, because it could definitely get mundane if you're applying to jobs. All you're doing is applying to jobs on a daily basis. Switch it up. Have some informative coffee chats with people in your network on LinkedIn. Exercise, do positive affirmations. I do a lot of mindset work with my clients, and getting into the habit of journaling, meditation, something that's going to really increase your endorphins and stay positive is going to really help you stay focused. And also too, it's okay if you want to just kind of step away from your job search to just kind of get recalibrated of what your goals are going to be. But yeah, those are my tips as far as staying positive in your job search. And then again, please ask for help. I know a lot of people think that asking for help is a sign of weakness. It's absolutely not. I mean, I always say this too, closed mouths don't get fed. So if no one's going to realize that you need help, how are they going to support you?
Definitely. And I think one thing that, you mentioned is stepping away. And that's really important sometimes because a lot of people, they go into sort of that survival mode if they lose a job or they don't have work and they say, I need to find something right away, which is completely understandable and a natural reaction. And in some cases, you do have to take something that may be outside of your lane normally, because obviously, there are bills there, you need money. But if you have the ability, or even if, you are still looking for a job, taking that pause to say, okay, where am I going? How am I going to get there? And just taking even a couple days to work on that can be so important and so helpful sometimes. So it's, a lot of people say, my full-time job is looking for a job. It shouldn't be, a 24/7 job though. So, I think that is such important, like you said, to step away sometime. And, before we jump into questions, and I hope everyone is putting their questions into the stream, I just want to say, hello to a few more people who've joined us. We have Haley from West Virginia, Ricardo from LA, Georgia from Chicago, Venus from London, Adele from Algeria, Rahendra from India, Yolanda from Mexico, and Mary says that today is her layoff anniversary. So we have a lot of people sort of marking that unfortunate milestone. And, we have a lot of your fans in the stream too. Let's get into some questions. And Linda wants to know if recruiters are the best way to get a job, or should you hire a professional resume writer? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. I think, if it's taking you some time to get some traction when it comes to getting exposure with hiring managers and recruiters, I would definitely try to lean on for help and hire a career coach if you can, or get another set of pair of eyes. So say if your resume is not, say if you're not actually getting calls from recruiters, you probably want to re-strategize your job search, look at your resume, get some help, as well as optimizing your LinkedIn profile. A lot of job seekers and candidates, as a recruiter myself, I know that often hiring managers actually prefer looking at LinkedIn profiles just because it's a more compelling, engaging way to review someone's career trajectory, right? So really utilize LinkedIn and your profile to stand out as a candidate. And then also too, I want to put this out there, a lot of job seekers often will, DM and email recruiters and sharing their resume in hopes of getting a call back from that recruiter. That's definitely great, but you have to keep in mind that recruiters receive 50 to 100 messages on a daily basis, depending on, what tech company they're working at, because that's something that I do, as a former recruiter in tech. And I always say, go directly to the source. If you're not getting any response from the recruiters, try to, say if you want to get into Google, right? And you're really passionate about the products and you're really passionate about storytelling and you want to get into the marketing department. Research people at Google, marketing manager, marketing specialist, and connect with them because their inbox is not as crazy as it is with recruiters, right? So the likelihood of them responding is going to be a lot more higher. And then also too, if you are looking to pivot into a specific target company that you really want to work in, connect with people that are alumni from your universities and colleges and see if they can help you by, asking them for a referral.
Yeah, I think those are really great advice. And, I think it's one of those things where it doesn't have to be either or too. And like you said, there are so many different ways, like connecting with people you went to school with or contacting the hiring manager if you can get to them or someone else in the company. I think a lot of people, they think, okay, I have to sort of pick a lane. But you could go through different routes and hopefully someone will get you to the process. And what I always like to remind people is that a lot of companies, they have, specific pathways that people have to follow. So you still may need to apply online so that way a recruiter can look you up in the system. You still may need to, go through the recruiter anyway. But, it doesn't hurt to sort of reach out to people and say, hey, I'm trying to learn about a job or something like that. So I think those are really great suggestions. And we have a few people in the stream talking about career change. And Layla talked about she was struggling with a career change. And obviously this differs from person to person, depending on what you're trying to jump to or what your skills are. But what are your suggestions for someone who is saying, hey, I do want to pivot, but maybe I'm struggling with it and I need sort of a process? What would your suggestion be for them?
Yeah, my suggestion too, and a lot of people are pivoting right now too, because 2020 was a huge lesson for us. it forced us to pause and reflect. And people are thinking, maybe this is a good time to change careers. And it is. My biggest tip there is get some clarity of the different positions that you want to get into. And then with your current experience right now, and sorry, the birds are chirping because they're just dropping so many gems in my ear. But my biggest tip there too is understand what your transferable skills are. And like, say, for example, if you are in customer service, right? And you really want to get into digital marketing and social media, right? Think about the way you're talking to your customer and how you're marketing your products when you're helping them, right? Those are technically transferable skills in the digital marketing space. So leverage that, right? And then if you want to get into that position, try to LinkedIn again. It's a great tool to find people that have pivoted from that customer service background into the marketing space. So you could really utilize LinkedIn and use a search and filter out different people and professionals and connect with them. If you're kind of lost as far as like how you can transition, pick their brain and say, hey, Andrew, I see that you actually was a customer service representative, say for Chase Bank, right? And it looks like you actually pivoted into a fintech company, into marketing. Would really love to, was really impressed by your journey. I'm someone that I'm actually thinking of, pivoting into the same industry and space. Would love to seek your advice.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And then we have some people, and this is sort of related, but it doesn't have to necessarily come with a career change. We have Nidhi and Andrew, who are both asking basically about people with less experience and how to get your foot in the door. I think this is obviously something that's common for people who are recent graduates, or who they're just entering the workforce, or they're changing careers and they say, hey, how do I compete with someone who's been in this area for 10 years or so? So for people who say, they worry about maybe that imposter syndrome like thing about I don't have enough experience, or maybe they don't have a lot of experience, what should those people do, and how do they overcome that obstacle?
Yes. And as far as limiting beliefs, those are things that I work through with my clients, is really taking control of those limiting beliefs, saying that I really want to get into, into tech, but I feel like I'm not qualified because I lack the experience. That's a limiting belief that you could actually control, but you're saying it as a feeling statement, right? That's obviously something that you can change with your mindset and the habits that you're going to take to feel confident in that career path. So my biggest advice there is up-level your skills. If you feel like there is some gap in your skills, take courses, take certifications. There's also a lot of I work with a lot of I've been facilitating some workshops for local boot camps that specialize in like engineering. There's a lot of programs out there that are accelerator programs where you can actually get certified in like DevOps engineering within 3 months, right? So lean onto those programs. And then if you lack the experience, because I do work with new grads as well, create a passion project. I know some of my clients actually have created side projects, side hustles, or even volunteer. And these are actually things that you could put on your resume. And when you are talking to that recruiter or hiring manager, you're saying, I definitely want to get into marketing. In addition to my job search, I have been doing freelance work for entrepreneurs by, helping them with their social media strategy. So I always say this: instead of waiting for the opportunity to get hired into that industry or position that you want to get into, create the own opportunity yourself and create a passion project or a little small freelance business that's going to showcase and give you the opportunity to practice those skills. So when you are talking to that hiring team, you can kind of sell yourself saying, I do have experience with my freelance work.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And we have some people in the stream, I think it was Adriana who said, she didn't have much experience in her job, but she made opportunities for herself with clubs, volunteer opportunities, and employee resource groups. And that helped a lot. And I think a lot of people go through that where they say, oh, I can, maybe volunteer some services initially or something like that. So I think that's always a really interesting strategy to sort of make those opportunities for yourselves.
No, exactly. And although, yes, you may not be getting paid, that's still a credible experience that you could put on your resume and speak about. So, and that's going to definitely, help you stand out as a candidate compared to people that are not being proactive by volunteering and offering their services, or even, taking that freelancing route. And the gig economy right now is really rising. So it's a great opportunity too to kind of leverage that need to help other entrepreneurs with any of your side projects or skills that you could kind of bring to them. that's going to help them grow their business.
Yes, and you're also expanding your network when you're volunteering or we're interacting with these people, so it's always great. And then we had a question I want to get to. I saw it higher up in the stream from Rita, who said, the job market is tough, and it's especially tough for people of quote unquote a certain age. So ageism is always a really tough thing to overcome in the job market. And I think especially, as a recruiter, you've probably encountered people who are older and said, I'm having a really tough time, and maybe some of your clients run into this too. What is your suggestion for people who feel like they're fighting ageism, or maybe they are fighting ageism in the job market?
My biggest thing, and I actually had, one of my recent clients that was experiencing that as far as having that lack of confidence, because she has a wealth of knowledge and experience. And she's often saying, like, I'm competing with, these Gen Z and millennials. But I always encourage clients or candidates or job seekers out there, if you are kind of feeling that way, really be proud of the work that you've been doing. And I know I always encourage, as a recruiter, hiring managers to really, I'm very passionate about diversity and inclusion. And I think that employers should definitely, how do I say this? Keep an open mind, and really, if there is job seekers or candidates that have, 10, 20 years of experience, look at that as an asset, because that's going to bring a little bit more diversity and different perspectives. And then also to keep in mind, 2020 hit us, right? A lot of companies are pivoting into remote settings. So I think companies could definitely benefit for, seasoned professionals, because they could really hit the ground running. So that's my advice there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, one thing that I fall into this trap too, is that, you are in a position or an industry for many years, and you sort of become that person who says, I deserve X, Y, or Z because I've been doing this so long. And maybe you do, but unfortunately for an employer, they don't often, give a lot of credit for the experience you have. What they want to see is what you're going to do for them. So it's always a lot about shifting the mindset and also saying, okay, yes, I have all this experience, and this is what I'm going to do for you with it. So what I always say is that potential employers are very selfish, and it's all about them.
Yes.
So, it's always about sort of chasing them and saying, here's how I'm going to solve your problems. And we have a question here, which I think is really interesting, and we get this quite a bit, is, do videos of yourself stand out to recruiters and hiring managers? That's from Matthew. And I think there's a lot of people who they sometimes post videos of themselves saying, hey, I'm a job seeker, and, all of this. And sometimes people do video resumes. What are your thoughts on those?
I think it's creative. It's innovative. It's showing that you are, optimistic, motivated, and creative with your approach. That's definitely going to help you stand out. I think it's fine. I think it's okay. Whatever it's going to help you, stand out. And if I do videos all the time. I always encourage my clients to utilize LinkedIn to create, by posting, their experiences with their job search, right? Or like showcasing the skills that they're picking up, right? Or what they learned in school. I think creating content on LinkedIn for job seekers I always encourage them, just because you never know who is reading your post, watching your video, reading your blog, reading your case study that you shared. So I always encourage people, job seekers, think outside the box, because again, it's going to take a lot more than applying to a position. You're going to have to network. You're going to need to ask for help. I always suggest create content that's going to really showcase what you could bring to an employer. I'm going to speak, from my experience. I have a ton of emails from recruiters saying, June, your resilience and your passion, for career coaching is definitely inspirational. We'd love to invite you to apply to our company, right? So again, I always say, utilize LinkedIn more than a job board and share your story. And I think video resumes is a definitely great, innovative approach that's going to definitely help you stand out.
Yes, I think that it's always good to take a risk and see about getting attention in unique ways, especially when there's a lot of competition. And David in the comments said, "Isn't LinkedIn adding the service soon?" And David is correct. LinkedIn is rolling out a cover story feature where you can add a short video. I did mine the other day. It took me several takes. So I'm interested to see what people are going to do with it. But yes, people will soon have the option to do that on LinkedIn. And then we have a question here from Brittany about the cousin of the resume, which is cover letters. And I always like to include this brief bit of history that Leonardo da Vinci was the person who I think invented the cover letter. So people say he invented the resume, but if you actually look at it, it's a cover letter to, I think it was a lord or something, or something in Italy to say, hey, I want this job and here's why. And he got the job. So Brittany says, how long should I be spending writing cover letters? I currently write very interesting cover letters and I'm not getting many calls back. So what is your perspective on cover letters?
Yeah, definitely do them. I know a lot of people are confused about writing cover letters and they have some challenges. First off, really follow the instructions when you're applying on an employer's website. If it tells you to upload a cover letter, upload the cover letter, because those are simple instructions that you should be following. And cover letters is a great way to give a little intro to your career story, which you could bring to the employer, right? You could really just craft a really base foundational cover letter and tweak it depending on the different companies that you're applying for. But what I always say is, in the very first paragraph, share what you're passionate, make it about the employer. What is it about that company that you're passionate about? What is it about that position particularly that you feel very excited about to apply? And then talk about, this is what I do and this is how I could help you. And I always say, break down some quantifiable metrics that's going to really show the impact that you've done in your previous experience by bullet pointing it. And then don't write 2-page, 3-page essays for your cover letters as well as your resumes. But you really want to make it, as a recruiter, you really want to make it very easy and digestible for that recruiter to read, as well as hiring managers. So I always say, start off with a really nice hook in the very first paragraph. Talk about what is it about that company, their mission, their products, their values, and how is it aligned with your own values as a professional, and how does your skills going to help that company move forward in their mission, right? And then talk about the different accomplishments you've done in your previous experience, and then reiterating at the very end saying, this is why you should be hiring me. And then always add a call to action saying, I would love to chat with you a little bit more to share how I could actually impact your company in this position.
I think those are really good pieces of advice. And like you said, it doesn't have to be an essay or a book. In fact, the one time I went back and I looked at the cover letter I sent to LinkedIn to work here, and I think it was 175 words. So it's not too long. It's not too short. It's a nice meaty piece of writing for about what I wanted to accomplish, but it's not going to take up a long time for it to read. And also for career changers, I think cover letters are great because it tells, like you said, their story. You could say, hey, listen, I was doing an accounting job, but now I want to switch over into this other finance thing, or I want to go into record keeping. So it could tell that story for you. And I think that's really great piece of advice. So I'm happy to hear that you're pro cover letter.
Yes.
And, for people who are thinking about applying and they sort of have their resume, as someone who's been on the other side and have gone through a lot of resumes, what is your best piece of advice for people when they're doing their resume? Because I think there's a lot of people who stress and worry about it. So what would you say is the best piece of advice?
Yeah, and you wrote a great article just this past week on the infamous ATS, right? And I know a lot of people think about I need to write a resume to beat the ATS. Talking about experience for recruiting for companies like Google and Wish, ATSs are there to organize the applications and just to really help the recruiter manage their pipeline of candidates, right? I always suggest for job seekers, write your resume with the mindset of how can you impact in this position? If you're looking at the bullet points on the job description, you want to make sure that in your experience, you're going to justify that you do have that experience by including quantifiable metrics and those keywords. So as a recruiter, when we work on a new position, we do an intake meeting, right? And I'm setting up a meeting with the hiring manager and really asking them, what types of backgrounds should I be looking out for on resumes and on LinkedIn? What are some different titles or transferable titles that I should keep an eye out for? And then what are some keywords and buzzwords that I should be looking on the resume? So my biggest thing there too is if you really want to get that recruiter's attention to go down the resume, really, really, really focus on the top, like the above the fold, the top half of your resume, and try to include as many keywords as possible in your summary and your skills, right? Because again, and I know Andrew knows this too, it takes a recruiter average 6 to 7 seconds to scan resume. So you really want to make sure you put all of your important assets and skills on the top of your resume so they could stop and say, who is Andrew? I see that he has marketing experience. He has SEO, storytelling, data analytics. Ooh, I'm going to go reach out to him. So really pay attention to those repetitive keywords that are listed in the job description, from the job description to qualifications, and include that in your resume. Of course, if you do have that experience in those particular technical skills.
Yeah. And I think, especially with keywords, I think the most important thing too is context, because a lot of people, and I think one of the great lies that you'll see people posting comments is that they're going to quote unquote beat the ATS by just pasting keywords or the job description in white font on their resume. Don't do that. Just don't. And then also, eventually it's going to get to your recruiter who's going to go through it and say, what the heck is this person doing? This looks, silly.
Right.
So it has to be in context. You have to say, if you know Python, the coding language, tell about the projects that you've actually done with Python. So they know that you're not just throwing it in there and that you actually know the programming language and that you've accomplished things with it. So, like you said, I think keywords are so important. It gives them a hint to say, hey, listen, I know this job. I know what you're looking for, but better yet, I understand it and I actually have experience with this and I could put it into use for you. So I think that's some great advice.
Yes.
And yeah, and thank you, June, for joining us. I think our viewers got so much out of this conversation, and I hope you keep spreading your wisdom on LinkedIn.
I will. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, and I hope everyone was following at the bottom of the screen because we've been flashing June's LinkedIn profile, so you can see it at the bottom of the screen right now. And, we do these conversations every week. However, next week I'll be taking a week off because LinkedIn is giving us all what we call a rest up week. The pandemic's obviously been difficult on everyone, so LinkedIn is giving their employees a little bit of a break. But we'll be back here the week after in April. So watch out for a notice about the next show, and you'll be able to RSVP and join that conversation then, and obviously get a notification when we go live. So until then, please be safe, protect yourself. You can only get a job, you can only be a good candidate if you're well enough to do so. So be sure to follow your local health guidelines, especially when it comes around to the COVID and pandemic, since that's still around. So until then, until we meet again, best of luck.